Welcome back. I hope you're enjoying these conversations as much as I am. Lots of real gems from Paul and Osa on that last one. Loved it. They shared great examples of how their companies and their customers have rapidly adjusted to today's work from home, really work from anywhere environment. It was pretty awesome. But now it's time to push the edge with a little help from our esteemed analysts. They are no strangers to the MEF world, not at all, and really have a handle on what's happening in the SD-WAN space. I've got Erin Dunne, Director of Research Services for Vertical Systems Group, and Roopa Honnachari, Industry Director, Business Communication Services and Cloud Services, ICT Practice for Frost & Sullivan. Over to you, ladies.
Hey, Roopa, how you doing? Good to see you.
Likewise, Erin. How are you?
I'm great. So after many years of MEF conferences in exotic locations, here we are in our home offices.
Yep.
Pretty exotic, right?
Yep. I hope Nan and Stan are hearing and they choose some really exotic location to compensate for in 2022.
I'm thinking Hawaii. I mean, it's been thrown about before, so that would work for me in case they're listening.
Yeah, or Bermuda.
Bermuda
both
works
are great
too.
Choices.
Anyway, a great segue into our first topic, which is how has COVID impacted the SD-WAN adoption, work from home adoption, and basically what's the path going forward? So I'm going to jump right in here. Throughout this MEF Infinite Edge series, you all in the audience are going to hear many deep dives from really great speakers on this topic. So what I'm going to do is stick with the numbers. In 2019, you can see on the timeline, we saw triple-digit revenue growth for carrier-managed SD-WAN services. In 2020, that slumped to 17%. Now, is 17% really a slump? No. But when compared to triple-digit revenue growth, we can call it a slump, I guess. Moving forward into 2021, we're seeing a revenue rebound as 2021 comes on and with the economic recovery. And all I can say is, come on, vaccine, it's time. We're ready. And so another point that I wanted to add here is when we asked in a mid-2020 survey about the post-pandemic outlook for SD-WAN, the top two responses that we got were, not surprisingly, accelerated enterprise IT and networking transformation and flexible work from home solutions. I have seen this rolled out in my personal life, in my work life, in all of my colleagues' work life. So I think it's a really interesting set of topics, and I'd love to hear what Roopa's research shows.
Great. Thanks, Erin. I do have some numbers which I'll share in a bit. But we also did a survey in Q3 of 2020 to understand, how the tech priorities are changing for different businesses and what's the impact of COVID. And, not surprisingly so, some of the technology trends like hybrid cloud services, network and application security, and SD-WAN still ranked, 1 to 3 in that order. So, like I said, not surprisingly, because businesses had to re-strategize on where their IT investments will be. But some of these technologies are so critical to continue operating your business online and to enable your employees to work from home wherever applicable, that the priorities remain intact for these three. Another slide here shows the rise in remote working trends and how SD-WAN quickly adapted to that, right? I mean, who would have thought that vendors and service providers would actually be shipping out an SD-WAN appliance to a remote worker? But that's exactly what they did. From the CEO to the receptionist to the doctors, everybody had to start working from home. And it was so critical as you're trying to do this, you're trying to share bandwidth with your kids doing school from home, your spouse working from home, or somebody else streaming some videos. And SD-WAN was the perfect solution to basically ensure that business traffic gets prioritization, and it has some inbuilt security measures in it already, and the traffic is handled in an appropriate manner. So no one, Erin, I think you would agree that no one would have guessed that SD-WAN would so quickly become the choice of the solution for work from home solutions, but it did.
It did, and the fact that the overlay and the underlay is disaggregated, it just allowed these companies to pivot or move faster than we would have seen if this technology did not exist.
Absolutely. So I guess that brings us to the next topic of discussion here as to how important is hybrid networking, right? I mean, overlay and underlay and hybrid networking, right? Everybody was using broadband from home and their wireless phones basically to create a dual link SD-WAN circuit from their home office to connect to the data centers or cloud. So I think it's absolutely important that a managed service provider is chosen to kind of deploy this for enterprises. And there's another survey we did, Erin, and what we saw is companies who were working with a managed service provider, kind of adapted much quickly to the work from home situation than others, where even the IT staff was stuck at home, right? There's only that much they could actually do sitting at home. But if you're working with a managed service provider, they could take on this responsibility. So, this is known. This is not new information, but a managed service provider can basically take on the integration, the troubleshooting, and end-to-end management of the entire network for the IT teams, and hence, we've seen a major rise in managed SD-WAN services. What are your thoughts on that, Erin?
Well, I would agree. And I think one additional point that I'd like to make is that SD-WAN is a new and really interesting addition to the mix of VPNs that are already available out there, right? The market for, oh God, I'm going to say it, legacy managed VPNs, that including, MPLS-based site-to-site and some hybrid VPNs is $35 billion worldwide. That is a ton of revenue. Now, it's in decline, but you're still going to see a $30 billion market 5 years from now. The decline, what's it based on? As you just said, those folks are migrating straight over to carrier-managed SD-WAN services. So I think that's really interesting. So I said it before, but I hate saying legacy services because these technologies still have a huge impact on the market. MPLS, big play in hybrid services. Also one of the access technologies of choice for carrier-managed SD-WANs, right? You have broadband, you have DIA, and you also have MPLS. And also, it is still, and Roopa, I'd love to hear from you to see if your research shows something different. It is still the technology of choice for mission-critical, headquarter, regional type enterprise installations because of the security. And what we found, and this is a neat topic that we've looked into, security in all of our research is a surprise with with SD-WAN, not a driver. If you're coming from a carrier-managed MPLS service, the security was somewhat built in. You took it for granted, and now you can't. So that seems to be interesting for me. Site to site, these VPNs that have been around for 30 some years, mostly based on IPsec, they're still there. And again, in decline, but those little VPNs still work for a big segment of the market because they do what they need to do and nothing else. So I just want to kind of to pull out those couple of points.
Sure.
I also had one other thing. I do have a definition slide up there that Roopa and I have kind of scrutinized. And both of our carrier-managed SD-WAN definitions pretty much agree to this image. Wouldn't you say, Roopa?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And it does line up with the MEF global standards. So the MEF likes to hear that. So I'm gonna toss over to you, Roopa. Anything else to add to there?
Well, I just want to add one more point to what you're talking about. This whole install base of MPLS and IPsec VPNs and Ethernet we have, which is, even as per our estimates, it's around $30-40 billion market. I think, what's happening now is all of those revenues is not going to go away. It's just shifting, right? I mean, like you said, businesses are still using a combination of MPLS and Ethernet and DIA and wireless. And we did not touch upon this, but 5G, the impact of 5G is going to be huge. So I think still there will be a lot of wired, networking happening, but it's not new revenues. I mean, there was some new revenues in the beginning. There was an uptick for MPLS so that they can do the combination of MPLS and broadband. But I don't think there's going to be more new revenues, and there'll be huge price compression for sure. But anyway, that's the legacy services. I can't believe I'm saying that too.
Oh boy. But one more thing to add too, I think that a lot of folks need to remember when looking at this market is that when you look at the underlay and the overlay for carrier managed SD-WAN, the underlay, all those services you were just talking to, contributes about 50% of the overall revenue for this market. So again, not new revenue. Those pipes were most likely there. Maybe you're adding, maybe you're mix and matching, but that's already there. So not new revenue.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, again, I think this brings us to the next topic of discussion, Erin, about certification, right? Any new technology, there's a huge hoopla around it. And then things settle down and you're like, well, is it standardized? Is it certified? So I think MEF is doing a lot of work around that area. And from the discussions I've had with service providers and vendors, there is certainly a lot of value to it. So it will further drive up adoption for sure. Erin, just to kind of validate and further emphasize as to how big this market is, our estimates show in 2019 the global SD-WAN vendor market was $1.2 billion, and the managed SD-WAN services market was almost double that at $2.2 billion. And over 350,000 sites operational today across the globe. And over 80% of those sites are managed sites. So that kind of again speaks back to what we were talking about, the importance of working with a managed service provider to help you do that. These are some of the stats. Erin, going back to the discussion on certification, what have you been hearing from your clients?
So we do test that on the enterprise side and on the services side, looking a little bit into how is certification, in this case from the MEF, valuable to your organization? And on the enterprise side, they're still unsure, right? This is relatively new to them, still trying to get their feet wet, and don't really have a big statement yet on whether or not carrier managed certified services are important. Now, on the services side, that's very different. First of all, my company, we do these leaderboards. I know you all have seen them out there for many, many years. Our 2019 carrier managed SD-WAN services leaderboard, it was the first time we did it, new market. If you look at that, 4 out of the top providers are currently certified by the MEF. So this is great. And on the global side, we're releasing our first global SD-WAN leaderboard shortly. I wish we could have gotten this just a little bit later, then we would have had those numbers for you, but we don't. The reason I mention this is because SD-WAN, new market. Carrier Ethernet, been around since the early 2000s on the wide area side, and we've been releasing market share and leaderboards for this market for that entire time. Currently, they're 3/4 of the top US and global carrier Ethernet service providers are currently certified with the MEF. So if you use that as a leading indicator about SD-WAN, I think that we're going to see a lot more certifications. Also, those that 3/4, that big number of service providers generates about, 4,500 or so carrier managed CECPs. And that's a lot of certified professionals. So I know the MEF considers this very, very important in its 2021 and future plans. And if we can use the history of Ethernet as any sort of indicator, I say that certified services and professionals for managed SD-WAN is going to be an important part of this market.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say on that. I don't know if do you have anything more to add there? before we?
Well, one last closing comment. I want to kind of echo what Rupesh said in episode 1, right? Who would have thought it? You and I have been in this industry, as analysts for
We've
over...
only been in this industry for at least for 5 years. 5 years only.
Yeah, that's how young we are. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So I will say networking is cool again. When was the last time you got so excited about what we are doing? When Ethernet happened, for sure.
Ethernet
And
happened
now,
for sure. We had a couple of terrible dips, terrible just, I don't know, ruts in this market. And now, again, it's cool again. And we brought in all of these new type of technologies, all of these new type of vendors, as you said, 5G. Now we got the wireless guys playing. It's interesting again. And I think the MEF, maybe this is a nice way to close it out, is sitting in a really good place right now to create the definitions and the language that unites all of these technologies.
Agree. All right, Erin, see you in Bermuda next year.
Yeah, we'll see you in Hawaii. It's fine.
Okay, either one is fine.
Bye-bye.
Bye.